Vinyl Esquire.
I don't think we've ever had DJ alone on the show before, but we have one today. He bringing light to a form of music that most people seem to forget. You know, the DJ is always there. He's the party starter. He is the crowd hyper. And here to get you out of your seats in disbelief is the legendary DJ, JS-1.
Vinyl Esquire. Vinyl
It's a matter
Esquire.
of bombing, knowing that I can do it, you know. Every time I get in the train, almost every day I see my name, I say, yeah, you know what, I was there, I bombed it. It's a matter, it's for me, it's not for nobody else to see. I don't care about nobody else seeing it, or the fact if they can read it or not. It's for me and other graffiti writers that we can read it. It's for us.
You're now listening to the legendary Vinyl Esquire.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's keep it moving. Let me introduce myself. My name is JS-1. My name is JS-1 from the Rocksteady crew.
Vinyl Esquire.
JS motherfucking
Vinyl Esquire.
Podcast that uplifts the DJ culture and honors our legends. Vinyl Esquire with DJ
Hello
Rip.
world, I want to welcome you to Vinyl Esquire, the podcast that delivers culture, truth, music. Would you join me, please, in welcoming DJ Rip?
Hello world, I want to welcome you to Vinyl Esquire. And Vinyl Esquire is the DJ podcast that uplifts the DJ culture and honors our legends. So without further ado, I would like to welcome to Vinyl Esquire the legendary DJ, producer, and turntablist, DJ JS-1, aka Jerms.
Yo, what up? Good to be here. I'm definitely happy that we finally get a chance to chop it up, and this should be good.
Absolutely, JS-1, how you doing? How's the family? How's life?
Everything is all good here. You know, the last few years been a little wild, a little different, like it's been for everybody. But we're hanging in there, and everything is all good.
Absolutely, man. I want to thank you for taking the interview. This is Vinyl Esquire, the legendary podcast that uplifts the DJ culture and honors our legends. You're definitely a legendary DJ, and you're also the first DJ who's also a legendary graffiti writer that I've ever interviewed, so it's a pleasure.
Oh, for sure, man. You know, that's something I've been doing. I've been doing both since the 80s, late 80s. Graph, I started a little bit before that, so I was actually doing graffiti before I started DJing.
Wow, okay. So since this is a DJ podcast, we're going to start with the DJ aspect of your life, and then we'll get to the graph. Cool?
Sure.
You know,
Yep.
we'll bounce back and forth, no question. All right,
That's cool.
So JS-1, let's take it all the way back to the beginning. Can you tell me who or what made you want to be a DJ?
So I've thought about this a bunch of different times. So I was a little kid, so to narrow down one thing was tough, but I do remember two specific moments that always stand out. So one was seeing Grand Mixer DST perform with Herbie Hancock on, I think it was American Music Awards. I remember sitting on my grandmother's floor and seeing him, and he just looked like a superhero. He had the gloves on, and he was just, when he was manipulating the record, it was like, it just caught me, because I know my grandparents had the turntable right there, and they would listen to old music on it, and then just seeing him do that, I was like, man, I want to try that. So that was like one thing that really stood out to me. I remember listening to AJ Scratch by Curtis Blow, which is a DJ record. I didn't know, I tried to find out why, who's AJ Scratch? What is he talking about? That was something that was like one of the first songs that I memorized all the words to. So it happened to be a DJ song, that and then Jam Master Jay.
Got you. Okay, so what year would you say that you started DJing, and what was your first DJ name?
Okay, so let me see. I got turntables going into high school. It was kind of a deal with my parents. Like, if I get good grades, can I get this used pair of turntables? And that was probably around 88, the summer of 88, I think it was, when I went into high school.
Okay.
So at that point, I had already had records. I was just buying some records at the local record shop here in Flushing, and then we'd go to the Coliseum in Jamaica Ave. And we were, me and my friends, we were just listening to the records on the stereo. Actually, we were trying to rap, so we would just be using instrumentals and try to rap over them. But after a while, I had a few crates of records, and I wanted the DJ to do what I saw the other DJs doing, and I couldn't do that because I just had one turntable with my stereo. So say around it was late 80s, and then once I got the turntables, I was just a homebody. I just stayed inside and fell in love with it, and kind of ADHD. I can't sit still, so it was just scratching and cutting up records, and the mixing part was cool, but I always just wanted to scratch and constantly doing doubles and stuff, and there was just a lot of time at home, and that's what helped me progress.
Gotcha. What was the first DJ name?
Oh, yeah, that's right. So the first DJ name, oh, man, I'm pretty sure it was Reality. I know there was another person. I know there was another DJ Reality, but I wasn't aware of it at the time. But that didn't stick too long, And then it was from my graffiti. It was, people were like, you should be DJ Jerms, and I was like, I don't know if I want to put the two together. And then when I would bomb doing graffiti and doing the illegal stuff like on highways, I would shorten the Jerms to just JS. And I would do JS's. And then that's where the JS-1 comes from. It's a shortened abbreviation of Jerms, which I spell with a J, Jerms. And it came from Graph. And I was like, well, that's hip-hop enough for me. I mean, it did use my DJ name as a Graph name. And that's how a lot of my friends and people knew of me, from the Graph stuff. So that's what stuck from there on.
Wow. Okay. All right. So here we go. You would say that you started DJing in the late 80s, but you got the bug in about maybe about 84, like early 80s, mid 80s.
Yeah, that was, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that was, I was trying to b-boy a little bit, and then just collecting some records and buying cassettes. And that was like mid 80s. Yep.
Got you. So you would say Grand Mixer DST, who then changed his name to DXT, right?
Yes.
So
correct.
Grand Mixer DXT was your first real DJ inspiration, yes?
Yes, him and Jam Master J.
And Jam Master J. Okay, incredible. Okay, so Reality may have been the first DJ name, and then you end up changing it to JS-1 based off of your graph name Jerms. Okay. So now let's talk about the graffiti. What made you want to get into graffiti? What was your first tag name, and who inspired you from that world?
So growing up in New York, graffiti was everywhere. And, everybody was trying to write or trying to come up with a tag name at one point. And as a little kid, I couldn't figure it out. Like, how are these guys getting around and putting their name all over the place? So you would see it all the time. And then one of the things that really sparked me was I used to spend a lot of time at my grandparents' house, and they lived on the back side of Left Rack in Queens. And off the corner was a place, Vinny's Pizzeria. And they had Ezo and some other guys did this Vinny's Pizza mural. And watching that and seeing that every day, that kind of sparked me to want to draw. I was always drawing. My father liked to draw, so I would sit and draw, but I was drawing like fighter planes and, G.I. Joe kind of stuff. And then just realizing that I could do letters, and I could write my name, and then I could put it places. Then in like 6th grade, we stole some spray paint. We went up to the schoolyard by my house, and we started writing all over the place. And then that just sparked it. Then it was just an addiction from that point on. And for me, I always liked lettering. So I was trying to learn wild styles and how to twist the letters and kind of make funky letters, and just became an addiction, really. And then I just kept doing it over the years. The first stuff I wrote, probably something silly and stupid like Raz, like R-A-Z. Everybody was like, that's probably been written a million times by a bunch of different people.
Right.
And then as I got better, then I looked up to somebody like Ghost, and then the dude Saint from Queens. He was bombing all over the place, and when I seen how these guys had longer tag names, then I realized, like, if I get something longer, I could do more of a wild style with it, rather than just having 3 letters. So then I kind of picked letters I like to do. And then when I came up with the word Jerms, I was like, let me not use the G. So I'm not copying Ghost's G. I'll flip it to a J. It's less likely that someone else will write that. and then Jerms just stuck.
Wow. Okay. So was Jerms your first? I know you said Raz, right? So
Yeah, Raz.
So Jerms was what you ended up going with, right?
Yes.
Absolutely. Okay. So talk to me about, how did you, because it seems like graffiti was the first love, and then the DJ, hip hop was the love, obviously, right?
Right, of course.
Anything and everything hip hop, right? But you started as a graffiti writer first, okay? And then you implemented the DJing, right? So,
Yes.
So from the graph side, was it more of just tagging your name? Did you want to go, as they say, all city? Did you want to do the full murals? What was your real inspiration or your goal as a graffiti writer?
So as a graffiti writer, I went through a couple of phases. At one point, I did want to just get my name up in different places, and the only thing with that is that there's a million other guys trying to do it, and anyone can kind of write their name anywhere. It doesn't really take much. You just got to go out and do it. And then it caused a million problems. There's tons of graffiti beef, and back then it was serious. Like, people were getting hurt and trying to kill each other over writing on a wall.
Right.
And that's not my thing. I'm not really trying to go and fight people over something written on a wall. But as I got better, I like the wild style aspect, and I like lettering. So I wanted to try to expand what I was doing and get better at it and be able to do a nice, colorful, stretched piece, and something more difficult, something that not every writer is able to do. And then instead of, when people say all city, instead of saying all city like going around to the different boroughs in the streets, there was also these like Hall of Fames and what we call pits, like different schoolyards and different hidden areas where the writers that did pieces and wild styles would go and hit these. So I made it a point to go to all of those different locations in that crowd of writers that I considered some of the better guys with style, and pieced in a lot of those places. They were still very dangerous and crazy. We've had people pull guns on us in some of those places, which was wild and crazy. But from like the Hall of Fame in Park 106 to like 174th in Webster, 238th Street in the Bronx.
Right.
There was a place, Franklin K. Lane in Queens, at high school, Tilden High School. That's actually where somebody pulled guns on us down there. And, Hillcrest High School in Jamaica. Then there was all these hidden locations under highways, an abandoned acid factory in Brooklyn, like all these different kind of spots. And I would go around to all of them and keep doing pieces. And then they got into graffiti magazines. Like early 90s, I started to get in all these different graph magazines. And, I was just inspired to keep doing the lettering. Amazing.
What did the movie Style Wars mean to you?
Oh, man, that's one of my favorite movies. That's everything, that's,
right.
Yeah,
right.
It's just, it's great. And then it touches on both sides of it. They have Cap in there, who's the wild bomber guy that's just about getting his name up more and going over everybody and threatening people, which is cool because I've gotten to know him like more recently right now, which is cool. And then there's, the guys in there like Scene and Duster, who are just trying to do really, really incredible pieces and full color stuff and really dope lettering. So it gives you a mixture of everything, and it's just a great. It's one of the things that when you want to explain to people what graph was like back then, it's a perfect thing to show them. It gives them, when they're at the writer's bench, you can see what people were wearing, how they were talking, what they talked about, the photo albums, how people were trying to, document all their stuff. Nowadays, it's so easy because everybody got their phone. You could take 4 million digital pictures.
Right, absolutely.
Back then, you had that one roll of film, and if you didn't catch it, you might not ever have a picture of what you did. So it's just all those different things. But that's definitely, that's one of the more real documentaries from back then that I would suggest that everybody go and check out.
Absolutely. So what was your relationship with the Rocksteady crew and the legendary beatboxer Rozelle?
Okay, so as far as Rocksteady crew, growing up when they were in their heyday in the 80s, it was mostly just seeing stuff from them either on television, on record, through magazines, and hearing about a lot of it. Then as I got a little bit older and started to get out and actually get around, I had met Tila Rock in the early 90s, and he used to take us around to a lot of different things and started to meet more people. And, yeah, Tila Rock took us to the Fever, which is like, I was like, oh, you know, we're in our glory. I got to meet Sweet G and all these different people. But
Right.
But as we were, as you know, as going around, I started to attend more events. And then when Crazy Legs started up the anniversaries again, you know, started to attend. We'd go to the schoolyard when they'd have the anniversary, and we would just be around. And I wasn't trying to get down with anybody or do anything. I was just trying to just be in a place with like-minded people that love hip-hop.
Right.
And then just constantly being around. And then eventually they were going to put Rozelle down with Rocksteady Crew. And we did a show out, one of the Rocksteady anniversaries, the West Coast edition ones. And when we did that show, at the end of the show, they called Rahzel on stage. And they also called me on the stage. And they inducted us into Rocksteady Crew as members of the crew, officially. And it was great for me because, you know, not my whole life, but most of my life, I was, you know, into hip-hop culture and doing all these different things. And sometimes you don't get validation or rewarded. You know, I would have a lot of the Guidos in my neighborhood calling me names or make fun of me for that stuff. And to get validation from them was huge. You know, it kind of gave me confidence that I was doing the right thing. And ever since then, you know, I've proudly been a member, and whenever they needed me, I was there at all the different anniversaries DJing, and we did some shows together in some other countries. I love everybody that's in the crew because we all kind of think alike.
Right. Incredible. So talk to me about Rahzel.
Okay, so Rozelle changed my life. You know, I owe that guy everything, and in fact, today's his birthday, so it's really cool that we're going to talk about Rozelle right now.
Well, salute to Rahzel and happy birthday. No question about it.
For sure. So obviously a big fan. You know, he's Rahzel, and I've heard about him, knew about him for a very long time. I remember going to like a Zulu anniversary in the early 90s, and Rahzel was there on stage. He was beatboxing like a Pete Rock beat, doing the Creator and all. And it was just, you know, floored by watching this guy. Incredible talent. Mm-hmm. And, I'd never, you know, loved Fat Boys, loved Dougie, you know, loved Reddy Roxy and all these different guys. But then to see Rahzel, what he was doing, I guess it would be like seeing somebody that rhymed in 82 and then hearing Rakim for the first time.
Right.
You know, it's like he just kind of, it's just what he was doing was like, wow, I can't believe this guy's really doing that. And, you know, just a big fan. Then I was down with DJ Scribble and DJ Slinky. Mm-hmm. And in the late 90s, Scribble had Rahzel on his album Traffic Jams.
Right.
And then Rahzel got a deal with MCA Records, and he started putting his album together, Make the Music 2000. And he was putting that together like 98, and it came out in 1999. When the album came out, he needed to get on tour and promote that album. My partner, DJ Slinky, was going to go and do the stuff with Rahzel on tour, but he couldn't do it because he had other engagements with DJ Scribble that they were going to do. And Rahzel asked me if I wanted to do it. And you know, I couldn't believe it. I was like, yeah, of course I want to go and do shows with you. And the first show we did was at Wetlands with the Executioners.
Okay.
Which was a lot for me because, you know, DJ wise and doing turntablism, I mean, those guys are beyond legendary, and you know, I knew who they were and had met them guys and watched them in battles.
Absolutely.
And now my first show with Rahzel is I got to go on. Actually, they were going on first, so I had to go on after all four of the X-Men.
Wow.
Just did all their routines, so you know it's
right. What?
Yeah,
a little bit of pressure, right? Good luck.
Yeah, right. And also we and Rahzel, we didn't rehearse anything. We didn't have a show. He was like, listen, I trust you. Just bring some records and let's do this. Now, at first I thought that was crazy, but then as time went on, I realized, how great it was, and how we just clicked. But that first show was a lot of pressure on me, and I had to get up there after the X-Men, and not only impress the crowd, it also do the show with Rozelle and have it come out right, because I felt like that was my job audition.
Right.
You know, if I mess this up, then I'm not going to be able to do stuff with this guy. And you know, if we're going to be totally honest, I had people around me and people that knew me thinking that it wasn't going to go anywhere. Figuring like, this guy just beatboxes. I mean, how much are you really going to do with that? And you know, it'll be cool for a few months, but where's that going to go? Mm-hmm. And I had a bunch of people tell me that, and I just knew. I was like, nah, you know, it's just something different. It's something different with what this guy does. And sure enough, you know, it just took off, like, for what he was doing. There wasn't anybody really doing that and doing like he did it. Right. And coming off the roots, you know, it blew up. And I mean, in fact, what really blew up everything for him was the era of like Napster and LimeWire just had started. Mm-hmm. And some of the skits that he had on his album, the beatbox skits, like If Your Mother Only Knew, where he does the beat and the chorus at the same time. Right. Those things were shared and downloaded like if they were platinum hit records, millions and millions and millions of times. And that alone just catapulted him into landing tons of tours and shows. You know, and we had no entourage. You know, it was myself, Rahzel, and Ajale, our road manager. And we were easy. We can go anywhere. We could do any style of music. Rozelle could beatbox. We've done reggae. Like, we've done raves, rock shows. We've opened for Gloria Gaynor. Wow. Like, he's done stuff with Bjork, Everlast, Ben Harper, like, to 50 Cent, Wu-Tang, to we've done shows with Oasis. You know, like some real
amazing. Like,
and we just kept going, and we knew this is the time to capitalize. We don't know how long we're going to be able to do it or want to do it.
Right.
And we just rode the wave until, to be quite honest, until we both were like, we need to take a break for a little while. You know, we were maybe 12 years, 13 years straight just going. Like, I have a list of the shows we did, and you could scroll, and it'll just scroll for like 40 minutes.
Wow. Amazing.
Yeah.
All across the world, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, somewhere I have it written down, but I mean, it's several dozen countries, hundreds of cities, and not just I mean, we touched every continent multiple times, you know, and it's not just the big cities, which is where a lot of the larger groups play. We were lucky enough that, you know, we can go to France and spend a month and a half there, and we would do like 25 different cities in France, when most people could name 2 or 3 cities there.
Right. Incredible.
And it was definitely great and eye-opening for myself to see the rest of the world and see how much they loved and appreciated, like, the actual raw deal part of hip hop. Like, they loved the graph, and I mean, we were battling each other doing beatbox and turntablism stuff. It's not like we were there like with some platinum record, you know. And he was headlining a lot of stuff, and there was huge crowds coming, you know. And then we got to do these big festival stuff as well, and definitely incredible. And what he's done for beatboxing is phenomenal. I mean, I've got to see little kids grow up, and now they're like 25 and they're winning beatbox contests. And we remember meeting them with their parents when they were little kids.
Absolutely. And I've had the honor to meet and work with Rozelle in the past. I know he has the Beatbox University. It's so incredible. So you still DJ for him as well, correct?
If he needs me, I'm there. But being honest, I've taken a back seat just to stay home with my son and family.
Got it.
And you know, I mean, yeah, of course. I mean, you know, that he's like my brother for life. And if there's something that I can go and do, I'm definitely there. But as far as doing those 2-month-long runs, I had to bow out to some of that just because I don't want to miss that time with my son. I have one son, and you know, now my son's just turned 11. And he's a little bit more independent, and you know, it's, you know, we're never too old. I mean, I know people say hip hop is a young man's game, but it's really not. You know, there's no age limit. So eventually, I'm sure we'll figure out a way to go back out for an extended period of time. But I'm always there with him for sure.
Incredible. So how did you originally get with Rozelle?
Well, that was meeting him. Actually, a funny story is the first time I actually talked to Rozelle, I asked him for a drop, and he told me no. which is really funny. That was actually at a Rocksteady anniversary.
Okay.
In the mid '90s. I think I was just so geeked I interrupted him while he was talking to somebody. It
Gotcha.
was like, who is this idiot? But the first time I got to really meet him was at a studio with Scribble. And
got it.
Forget where we were. I forget the studio that we were in, but we were at a studio, and it's how I kind of actually officially met him.
Got you. Okay, and that's when Scribble was working on his Traffic Jam album, right?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
cool. Yeah. Salute to Scribble and Slinky, no question.
For sure.
Yeah. So JS, talk to me about the famous Return of the DJ series and some of the mixtapes that you've done with DJ Spinbad.
Okay, so when I was as I got better at DJing, I fell in love with scratching. Scratching was something that it just clicked with me. And going back, and I would study like the stuff that Jazzy Jeff did on record and the stuff that Cash Money did on record, and the way they would piece together different things and using all these different scratches and samples together. So when I started to try to make mixtapes, I was like, look, I could sit and easily make a mixtape where I'm just mixing records together and cutting some stuff up, but I want to try to make something a little bit better. I want to try to make it like a movie. I want to do what those guys were doing on their records, but make that 90 minutes. So I got a broken 4-track recorder and started trying to, overdub myself, like cut up a couple of beats, then lay a few scratches over that, try to find an acapella and lay that over that. And that started me in a path to try to make these concept mixtapes. And I met DJ Spinbad, and when we met, we kind of clicked just because he was doing the same thing. And once we realized, like, oh man, we're on the same page, and like we could really do something like super cool if we both do it together. And I don't have to do 90 minutes of that because it's a lot of work.
Right.
We could each do 45 minutes and put out some mixtapes.
Yeah.
So we started working on some mixtapes, and we did all the Cold Cuts remixes where it was tons of work. We were basically remixing tons of different acapellas, doing the scratch hooks, putting stuff from movies. And this was like 95. So that tape, between both of our connections, it did really well, and we were surprised. Like I actually had my grandmother and my mother in here helping us dub cassettes and putting the stickers on it because we were selling so many.
Wow.
We were like, we need an assembly line. Yeah, my grandmother was helping us. So once that happened, we did a couple of others together, and it was just it was fun doing them because we were creating something new, and rather than just playing the records, I wasn't going to try to compete with some of the big name DJs that were getting all the exclusives. Like I didn't have access to get something straight from a DAT tape from the actual artist himself in the studio.
Right.
So our way to compete and do something a little bit different was to do the skill side of it and come up with these concept mixtapes. And that just took off. And then the Return of the DJ thing, that's Dave Paul and Bomb Hip Hop Records from the West Coast. When he asked if we'd be interested in doing something on one of those, as a turntablist, we love scratch tracks. We love all the songs on all the albums dedicated to the DJ.
Right.
That's not a thing anymore. Like people don't have, a lot of these bigger name groups, they don't have DJs.
I know.
They don't have scratches on their albums. They don't do a song dedicated to the DJ. But that's the stuff that we grew up loving. So we were like, oh man, we get a chance to do one of those kind of tracks with just, speaking with our hands. Like we're not going to rap, but I could do a verse with just cutting up phrases.
Right.
And that's what those Return of the DJ records were. And he was curating that, getting some of the best DJs around the world to do those kind of tracks. And for me to get on an album where you're going to have the X-Men, or you're going to have some of the Scratch Pickles or Q-Bird and Mixmaster Mike or DJ Tommy T or DJ Noise or just all these different guys from around the world that do that, we jumped on it. And that series kind of did well. It was something a little different. I'm pretty sure Rolling Stone magazine had that in like their top 100. I don't know if it was like influential album series or something. Like they gave that a lot of critical acclaim. And that was also another way for me to get exposure to some of the people overseas that would have no way of hearing of me back then.
Right, got you. Okay. So I believe you've done 9 albums to date. Is that right?
Something like that, yeah. I'm losing track because I just put out 1 or 2, and I got more coming. But yeah, give or take, yeah, around there.
Okay. So let's just say you got 9 albums to date at this point, roughly.
Right.
And you've worked with so many artists like Krs-One, Cool G Rap, Royce the 5'9", Dilated Peoples, Ill Bill, and the list goes on and on. Talk to me just a little bit about the catalog of DJ JS-1, your body of work, the albums, just briefly.
Sure. Okay, so here's a lesson for anybody that hears this. One thing that I learned, and I learned it from Rozelle, who learned from Biz, and also Jazzy Jeff. When you have a talent such as like a turntablist, where your talent is cutting up records and doing DJ tricks and stuff, or you're a beatboxer, there's only so far it's going to go, because to get bookings, the booking agents, they look for like, where's your product?
Right.
They don't really look at you like, they look at us like we're a juggling act or a magician. They don't look at us like an artist. The same way they would look at somebody that has an album out. And if you go back and you look at the DJs that were able to get from the battle turntablist scene to get above that and get major bookings and get tours, they all put records out. Right. Every one of them. The X-Men did it, Jazzy Jeff did it, Cash Money did it, DJ Scratch did it, like all of the guys that, DST, like all of these guys did it. Grandmaster Flash did it from the very beginning.
Right.
And that's what separated some of these guys. That's probably what separated Flash from the Theodore invented scratching. But Grandmaster Flash was huge because he had records. And, Theodore had some, but not like Flash would have. And that's where, same thing with beatboxing. Like Biz was like, yeah, I could have kept beatboxing, but I mean, I put records out and it changed everything. Same thing with Dougie. He could have stayed just beatboxing and it wouldn't have went where it went. So for me, I was thinking how I'm getting pigeonholed as some guy that scratches good and makes scratch mixtapes. But how do I get out of that?
Right.
So I learned, and the same reason why Rozelle put his album out. He's like, this is gonna be the ramp to being able to go up towards getting our own bookings. So sure enough, once I saw that out on tour, I'm like, I need to get my name on these flyers. Like, these promoters are treating me like I'm just some dude that's DJing for this guy. Mm-hmm. But I want them to know I'm also an artist, and I was making beats and doing demos with my friend in the house from day one. So I was like, okay, it's time to make a record. And the first person, I'm like, I don't want to come in the door and just get anybody. I need to get my favorite MC and do something like really worthwhile. So through my boy Domingo, who was working at the same studio that I was using at the time, Domingo had done like the MC for KRS-One, and he had knew him. And I asked Domingo, I was like, yo, can you please get KRS to come in here and let me talk to him about doing a record? And he brought KRS in. KRS told me I had to sit down and kind of convince him why he should do that with me. And we had a long hip hop talk. And once he saw of what I was doing, who I was around, my connection to Tila Rock really helped that when I brought that up to him. He had his Tila Rock stories, and then we started to click right away. Right. And then he recorded a song for me called Essentials. And I remember going to the payphone at the studio actually and calling Rahzel and being like, yo, like I just did this record with KRS, and he said your name on the song. Like, you got to come in here and add some parts in. And he was like, oh wow, this is great. So we got that record done. I got Brian Life, who was doing like incredible artwork on some other record covers. He did a cover for me. And then when we dropped that record, I put it out through Fat Beats, and I was just proud, that how the record came out. That my first record was going to be with my favorite MC, and it was KRS-One. Right. And then it ended up being like one of Fat Beat's better sellers that year, and for indie records. And like they were like, you need to do more like this. Like this came out like this is doing really well. Everybody loved the record, and it changed things because now I have a record with a picture with myself with Krs-One and Rozelle in record stores all around the world. So now all the DJs that were buying that kind of stuff, now that's my promotion, and it's time for them to take me a little bit more seriously.
Right.
Then I just did the same format. I got through Domingo, then he brought in Cool G Rap. Cool G Rap agreed. Then I went and I was like, I'm going to do one with OC. I'm going to do one with, like, can I get Big Daddy Kane? Who could I get? And then as, you know, having those guys help me get other people, because I'm like, look, these guys did it. And then the other artists were like, oh shit, well, if these guys are doing it with him, I mean, he must be somebody, he can't be full of shit.
Right.
And they saw, you know, they saw the quality of the records, and Fat Beats was really helping me out, handling the business properly, and everything just started rolling. And then I just started going to the people I had relationships with already from DJing all these different underground shows here in New York. So I knew the whole underground scene. So it's like, it wasn't like now it's not easy to get somebody like Immortal Technique. He does really well. But back then I knew him when, you know, we were just doing shows in the basement at places. So like he came through, and then like Ill Bill and all those kind of guys. When we were on tour, when we were in the West Coast, I went to get Evidence, and, you know, I'm like, I love Dilated Peoples, and Planet Asia was there. I met the Hyro guys.
Right.
So then like Pep Love and Casual were down, and I just kept trying to build and get people I love and keep putting the stuff out and try to be relentless with it. You know, trying not to stop. The turntablist guys weren't doing it. You know, like the turntablist guys, they're worried about the 6-minute routine that they got to do in the battle, which is great. But I was like, look, I can make money off this, and I'm also getting to work with all of these different guys that I love, and I just kept going and going, and it's a headache. I mean, I can't lie. When I don't rap, so I have to fill up 15, 20 songs. I was putting 20 songs on those albums, so to fill that up with different people, it's not the easiest thing in the world to get people to coordinate, show up. You know, one of my things I try to tell everybody is, like, I got Ultramagnetic, I got Cool Keith and Said G to show up for me at 9 o'clock in the morning in the rain on a Sunday. And when they, because people are like, they're not going to show up. Cool Keith's not going to show up. And when they showed up to do that for me, I was like, man, things are really going great. Like, I'm getting the guys that I really idolized and looked up to actually show up for me. So, I mean, I owe all of the artists, you know, Master Ace, he did what he called, which he's actually tweeted out, one of his favorite verses of all time.
Wow.
And yeah, well, he did this verse, and we called it "What Am I?" And he did a verse about from the point of view of being a spray can, but he almost made it have like a double meaning, where it sounds like he could almost be a gang member, but it's through the eyes of a spray can, and it's like super clever story writing, and it's one of his lesser known things because it's on my album.
Right.
It wasn't on one of his, so it's like just one of those rare treats that when a Master Ace fan gets to hear it, they're like, oh shit, you know, like I didn't know about that. And the same thing with OC. The first record I did with OC, I mean, I did about 3 or 4 now, but the first one was called Beyond, and it's just, everything just came together right. It's probably my favorite thing that I put out. It's just if you listen to that one, it's just, everything just sounds right. Gotcha. And it did well, and here I am still working on new stuff. I just got a new batch of songs that I'm about to drop with some newer artists like Afro and some of the newer kids, and yeah, they're still doing it.
Okay, we'll get to the new project in a little bit.
Sure.
So would you say that, because I was going to ask you, because this is a very hard question when I ask artists or DJs what's their favorite record they ever put out, right? So would you say the OC is one of your favorite records you've ever put out?
Yeah, the OC and the KRS first one, the Essentials and the OC Beyond.
Gotcha.
Those two, just everything just came together right.
Absolutely, yeah, and both are classics, by the way. So you produced all of your own music, is that right?
I produced 98% of the stuff from the second album on. The first album was myself, and at the time my partner was my friend Dub L.
Okay.
So Dub L did a bunch of work on that one with me, and then when part of the deal was when I got KRS to come in, that Domingo was going to help out on that one.
Gotcha.
So the first album had had a few different producers on it with me, and it's part of the paying dues process. You know, I was like, that's fine.
Absolutely.
And it's my friends. So that was a way to get in the door, try to help out my friends, and pay those dues. And then from that point on, I was like, okay. It also gave a little bit gave the artist a little bit of faith in me to see that I showed improve. Like, this is how these songs are going to come out. Just trust me, because sometimes if they don't know you, they don't trust you. I've had artists that I've approached and they wanted their friend to produce the song.
Right.
I'm like, that kind of defeats the purpose. I'm like, it's my album. I'm doing the music.
Right.
So at least I had that stuff to then show them and convince them.
Right. How do you approach producing records?
So, okay. So the first thing that I do that's probably a little bit different is that I'm not looking to make singles or like what, bangers or hit records or whatever you want to call it. Like, some people just set out to try to, I guess, make the best beat possible. What I try to do is I make beats. I don't do the finished instrumental. I just kind of make a shell of the beat. And then I listen to them all, and then something will pop in my mind where I'm like, this one's going to fit this person, and this one's going to fit this person. And then I try to make what I like and not worry about it. All my stuff has scratch hooks, which is, it kind of limits the audience anyway. It's not gonna get to a certain level because that's not the stuff that's popular. So I like to tell everybody, like, I try to make a whole album of B-sides.
Gotcha.
That and that worked for me. That's always been. If you look at my album covers and the titles, it's almost mocking myself. For like the No Sellout album, I'm on the cover almost like a homeless dude standing there with a piece of cardboard that says No Sellout and a dirty shirt.
Right.
And then the next album, when I did No One Cares, it's me laying dead on the floor, and the name of the album is No One Cares.
Right.
So I'm just trying to do, I always love the B-sides, and like I said, I like the DJ song on the album. So I was trying to do that kind of stuff, and the people that are like-minded and like that kind of stuff, they gravitate towards my stuff. And the people that want to hear something that sounds maybe a little bit more like some of the more popular stuff, then there's plenty of other people that they could go to for that.
Absolutely. Well, I know usually the B-sides usually end up being the ones that stand the test of time and become classics, right? And it's all about the body of work, right?
Right, of course. Yep, I agree.
Absolutely. So what were you using then to produce versus what you're using now to produce records?
Okay, so when I very, very first started, I had just like one of those super cheap. Actually, when we first started, we had to go to a studio. We had no gear. Like, we would literally show up like old school style with some samples.
Right. Put it together.
Yeah. And we'd be in the studio, and whatever gear they had available, I'd be like, all right, how do I loop this and put this over it? But that was way back. And then I actually I got an S950. It was like the first real piece of gear that we had in the house in the 90s. And so we started off on the Akai S950, triggering the samples through that. Then I got an MPC 2000.
Yes.
And a bulk of the stuff was done on MPC 2000.
Got you. Okay.
Afterwards, I did use Machine. The Machine 1 for a little while. I tested that out. So there's a few tracks on some of the newer albums that came from that. And then now I've been kind of messing around doing a little bit of everything. Like, here and there, I'll take the MPC out. I have just like a Akai drum pad set that I'll just trigger stuff into Logic. Sometimes I'll do stuff that way.
Okay.
So I have it's a variety of stuff, and however I can kind of get it done.
All right, super dope, incredible, and I can't wait to hear some of the new classics that are coming out. So,
Cool.
So let's talk about the graffiti now. I want to go back to that. So your artwork has been featured on Fox News, NY1, CNBC, and many other platforms.
Yep.
Now, talk to me about this federal lawsuit trial on 5 Pointz. You were a part of this, and correct me if I'm wrong, there was $6.7 million awarded to a group of people that was involved. Talk to me about this interesting and amazing lawsuit that you were a part of from the graph side.
Sure. So 5 Pointz, for people that don't know, was It was originally, it was always just an old, dilapidated building in Long Island City along where the 7 train would make the big famous, there's a huge curve on the 7 train, and it was right off the side of that. And when we were kids, we would ride the train, we would look over there, there'd always be tons of graffiti. It was done illegally, you know, like Ghost used to do stuff, and all these people had stuff on that building.
Okay.
Then it was taken over, and it was called the Fun Factory. And it turned into like a legal place where graffiti writers could go and do pieces and not have to worry. It was done legally. Then that place was handed over to a friend of mine who writes Mears. When Mears took over that place, they started calling it 5 Points. So partially because of the way the streets intersect there, and there's 5 intersections, 5 streets kind of meeting over there.
Okay.
So he took it over, and he really elevated it. Like, he had connections to a lot of different people, and he was inviting all these different graph people to come, and they eventually covered the whole building up the 4 or 5 floors up and all the way around, like 4 city blocks worth.
Wow.
So that just it became like a meeting place for writers. People were coming from other countries. He was curating, getting like some of the best guys from all these different places to come. And it was like a graffiti museum, free out to the public. And it would constantly be rotating. Different artists would come, and they would change the walls and keep going. And it lasted for a really long time, over a decade like that. And eventually, you know, gentrification in the city and property values in that place, it used to be a shithole. It used to be a place where you would get robbed and, you know, look for crack hookers or crack. And over the years, the neighborhood itself started to get a little better because the graffiti writers were putting good artwork on 5 Points. People were coming there and bringing families there. There was actually tours you would go by there and look at the stuff. And the neighborhood started to get a little bit better. So the owner of the building, who didn't give a shit about the building for 30 years that he owned it, all of a sudden he started to care a little bit because he was making some money. They were filming movies there. They were filming videos there, and they would have to pay him for rights to use the property. And he then wanted to knock down the building and build these 2 luxury condo towers. So we knew that it was going to be coming to an end. In 2013, Mears tried to get the building landmarked so he wouldn't be able to knock it down.
Right.
The owner wasn't too happy with that. Obviously, the guy stood to make a lot of money by knocking his shitty building down and building these 2 new luxury towers.
Right.
So they left thinking like there's no chance of that, but they got all the signatures necessary and made sure they did everything that they could, and they brought it to court. When it went to court, the judge made a ruling. Judge Block was his name, and he made a ruling saying that they can't stop this guy from knocking his building down and putting up the towers. However, the judge told the owner of the building there's a thing called the VARA Act, which is the Visual Arts Rights Act. And he said, what you need to do is give the artists notice of when you're going to knock it down, like a 60 or 90-day notice, I forget which one it was, and let them know. And if there's anything that they could come and take for themselves, if they want to pull some of the stuff off the side and keep it as a memento, if they could even get some of the bricks or whatever they want to do, let them come. Some of the art was painted on wooden boards that we could have took down and stuff like that. Is let them come and take what they want to take. You're going to knock the building down anyway.
Right.
And you have to give them written notice. Otherwise, you could be violating this VARA Act. And don't do that. That would be foolish. So the owner, angry billionaire dude, he left court. And instead of just saying, okay, fine, and telling us, like, go ahead, guys, you have next Saturday, go take whatever you want, and that'll be the end of it, what he decided to do is, at 3 o'clock in the morning, 3 days later, he hired some dudes off the street to just go and take paint and just paint over all the artwork. So the first thing is that he completely went against what the judge just told him not to do.
Right.
Which is the real reason that the guy lost the case. I mean, if we're going to be honest. You know, I mean, if a federal judge tells you, don't do this, and then 3 days later you do it and also do it in like a shady way, you're not setting yourself up good, you know? So once he did that, then he didn't knock the building down for the longest time. So the building just stood there with like the artwork, with all the art that everybody put in all over the building, just kind of destroyed for no reason. I mean, there was no reason for the guy to do it. So we took him to court and used the Vera Act as the reason we were taking him to court. Now, the Vera Act says that you can't, if there's any artists that have of any stature, that you can't destroy their artwork unless you give them written notice. And now the Vera Act was for different reasons. You know, imagine if, I mean, I know some people will hate me saying this because it's going to go slightly political, but like, let's just say if like Trump is rich and he decides, I'm going to take this famous Mexican artist guy and I'm going to buy all his paintings and then I'm going to destroy him.
Right.
He can't do that. Even if you own the artwork, it's still protected if it's somebody of stature.
Gotcha.
So we went to court, and of course we had to prove the case. That was in November of 2013. They brought us all in for depositions, Park Avenue, with these big shot lawyers questioning my tax returns. And you know, as somebody that works independently as a DJ and a graffiti writer,
right?
I you know, I don't need them all in my tax returns.
Right,
You know?
absolutely.
So, and that was like for a lot of us, you know, and it was scary. They had me at the table. They questioned me for like 6 to 7 hours with these big, you know, these big high-paid attorneys, and they did that to all of us. And then they dragged this thing out for like 7 years. Now, when the trial started, because they offered us $3,000. That was their offer. They offered us $3,000. A couple of people took the offer and dropped out. About 20 of us were like, no, we'll just go to trial.
Right.
Now, there's never been a trial about graffiti. There's been cases where people have been wronged and sued companies, but then they settle. So, like, there was a thing with, like, the Tats Crew guys when, like, a J-Lo commercial where they used their artwork for, like, I don't know if it was Fiat or car commercial. There's been other cases over graffiti, but all of the cases have been settled before a trial. Got it. So this one went to trial, and the trial was a month long, and we all had to testify. The owner had to testify, and we had people from Sotheby's there testifying to the value of our work. Wow. And yeah, it was a pretty big deal. You know, there was people from the Times and the news and all these people at the courthouse all the time. And it was scary because we all knew that we gave these depositions like 7 years ago, and they were going to try to catch us in lies or catch us in miswording or using clever words to try to make us look like we're, you know, these horrible vandals, these loser guys trying to just sue for money. Right. And it was tough. You know, I had to go up there on the stand, and the lawyer, she was trying every little thing. She put a picture of me up there doing illegal graffiti in what we call the Freedom Tunnel, and she was trying to make me look like I'm some bad person. And you know, the judge seen through a lot of that. There was actually a jury on the case too, and I think those people kind of saw through what they were doing. And then the owner, when he took the stand, he was fighting with the judge. He was belligerent. He was being really mean. He came across terrible. Yeah. And he didn't really have an excuse as to why he didn't listen to the judge in the first place and why he destroyed the artwork rather than just knocking the building down like he was supposed to do in the first place. Right. And, you know, we weren't sure what was going to happen. We felt like we made a great case, and, you know, we were happy all the way through. And the judge came back, and the ruling that they decided was it was hard to evaluate exactly how much the artwork would be worth. So what the judge did is it was punitive damages. He punished this guy for doing something wrong. And there was 45 pieces that he destroyed. And the maximum the maximum penalty for that was $150,000. So they penalized him 45 times $150,000.
Wow.
And yeah, and so he lost, and we were like, wow, this is incredible.
Right.
Then, and see, the thing also that there was people that were talking bad about us, but what they didn't understand is that we didn't sue for money. Like, we never said we want this amount of money. That we never brought up money at all. We were suing. What we were suing for is to try to get our graffiti taken seriously as an art form and protected by laws. The same way, if I did a sculpture and that guy would have went and knocked the head off the sculpture with a sledgehammer, the whole world would be freaking out. He's wrong. He's terrible.
Absolutely.
How could you do that? If he went in a museum and took a razor and cut something that was an oil painting in a frame, the whole world would freak out. But the fact that it was graffiti on a wall,
right?
People just thought like, well, it's just graffiti on a wall. Who gives a shit if they paint over it? And, we were like, no, it doesn't totally work like that. And this was the first time, because of the VERA Act, that we proved in federal court, and it's a precedent case, that no, some graffiti, if done by certain people under certain circumstances, can be protected under federal law, just like any other form of art. Wow. And that's what the case was really about. And then, he appealed, and then it had to go to 3 higher judges, and we were scared. And then those 3 judges all agreed with us. And then at that point, it came back where it's like, no, it's over. You've exhausted all your routes of trying to go against these guys. And that's it. It's, this is the ruling stands. And then he also had to pay our lawyer fees on top of it, because we then sued for our lawyer fees. Right. So he had to pay another, whatever, it was a lot of money. And,
wow.
I think he actually sued his own lawyers for losing the case. He didn't want to pay his own lawyers. And on top of it, he then called the towers that he put up, the 5 Pointz towers, and is like and then used the logo that Mia's had for his 5 Pointz as their logo for these towers, and now is trying to bring in street artists to like do stuff there again. And it's a wild story. It's really wild, And so I took my money and I put it right in my son's UTMA account, and that's what it went to. And it's just like it's just a nice thing for my son when he's old enough.
Well, good for you, and what a win for hip hop, right?
Hell yeah, thank you. Yes, I mean, some people didn't understand it. Some people definitely didn't understand. I had people telling us we were sellouts and we're crazy, and
I don't understand
I've even had
why.
friends. Yeah, they looked at it as like I don't know what they thought, like what we should keep it real and fight them in the street, like, like that.
Yeah. No, this is a real win for hip hop. You know what I mean? It really
was. And also Lady Pink was part of the trial from Wild South. Like Lady Pink was part of the trial. Yes.
Amazing. Congratulations and salute to you and everybody involved. Is definitely a win for hip hop, no question.
For sure.
And the graffiti world, right?
Yes.
Yes. So speaking of that, how have you been able to balance a successful career as a DJ, producer, and artist, right? Because and a graffiti writer. How have you been able to balance this?
And a dad.
And a dad, right. As we all are, absolutely.
Trying to teach my son fractions and then sneak out and do graffiti and work on a new song at the same time.
Right.
Yeah, it's kind of wild, but I mean, there's a few things that first of all is that I'm very OCD with time management. Sounds funny, but I'm like anybody that knows me, everything runs on time and on schedule, and everything is scheduled. So that was something that definitely helped me try to manage all these different things. But the real thing, and this is what I owe everything to, is I had a fantastic support team. I have a great family, and not everybody is blessed to have that at all. I mean, my friends have been fantastic. They've all helped and supported. I have Rozelle when I need him, like he's there for stuff that know a lot of other guys that DJ for different artists, and those artists do nothing for the DJs. In fact, some of those artists try to DJ themselves now and take jobs away from their own friends.
Right, absolutely.
And I've never encountered that. I've had people like Krs-One like show up for me and do more than I've asked for on multiple occasions. I've you know, like it's just been really incredible of the help that I've had from everybody that allowed me to kind of do what I'm doing comfortably. And then the biggest thing that I can't talk enough about, I've always, from my dad had a very modest job. He worked for the phone company, blue collar job, didn't make a lot of money, but we had nice stuff. And that was from saving and being wise with his money. And he always was on top of me about that from early on. So I was a penny pincher. Like, I probably still have money from birthdays when I was a kid in my portfolio.
Okay.
You know, I don't buy anything that I don't need. I know this sounds nuts, but like it's very, like my clothes were like free t-shirts that I would get because I was a DJ. I have 1-2 pairs of sneakers.
Right.
You know, I don't have, but I was taking all of the money that I would make from those record sales, all of the money from touring, and I was investing my money in the stock market.
Wonderful.
Now, what I did was, everybody was telling me to buy property. I'm not a landlord type, and I'm not a handyman. So I was like, I don't know if I want to play landlord. It's a great idea to do, but not for me. I'm more of a numbers and data guy. I was always interested in the stock market. Probably would be doing something in that field at this point if life was different. So I was always reading, studying, and watching. And I saved up a lot of money. Was very scared of what to do with it because I knew I couldn't make it back. Like, you know, like when you have money from a tour in France, I might not ever do a tour in France again. So I have to keep that money.
Right.
How many records am I going to put out with Cool G Rap on it? Like, you know, like I have to keep that money. So when I had all my money saved, I knew when there's not a correction in the market, when there's a crash in the stock market, and I've been through one in 1999, I had money in the market when that crashed. So I knew when the market crashes, I got to make a move, and I got to go all in. In 2008, when the financial crisis happened and the market tanked huge, people were freaking out, and I was like, this is my moment.
Yeah.
But this is my moment. And I had what most people don't have is I had a shitload of cash saved up. And 2009 to 2010, in that 2-year span, I didn't dump it all in one shot because that's not how you do it. Every month, I was adding and adding and adding until I used all of my money, and I was all in by the end of 2010. And, you know, I was buying Microsoft at $30. And, you know, like my Apple is up 1,200% since then. My Microsoft is up, I don't know, 700%, 600%, whatever the hell it is. Right. You know, and I was buying all these things. I was buying NVIDIA at $60, and, you know, and it went to $800. You know, and I was buying Disney, buying all these different things. And it wasn't rocket science. I wasn't buying companies and these startups that I don't know anything about. Or I was buying, you know, big name companies, nothing crazy. I was buying Nike when it was still really cheap, and just kept adding and adding. And then over the years, I learned more and more. I spend most of my days doing that. That's what's on my screen right now. That's what's on my laptop right now. I still do it constantly. And I spend most of my time doing investing in stock stuff for myself, like all day long. That's pretty much what I'm doing usually if I'm not making a record or just doing that stuff. And I've been doing it for a long time now, and it's something I love, and that really changed everything for me.
Wow.
You know, it allowed me to not have to try to run the marathon with the other 1,000 artists that are trying to be famous and rich.
Right.
It allowed me to go now, and I could say, well, I'm just going to put out this new album, and I'm just going to get the MCs that I like because my Spotify money is going to be shit. You know, the streaming money is terrible unless you're like a big legacy artist. I mean, it's great for Drake. It's great for the Eagles. It's great for people that own Michael Jackson's rights. It's great for, it's great for that kind of stuff, but it's not so great for indie artists. I mean, the money you get from that, I mean 10 million streams would get me 40 grand, and then I have to give some to the digital distributor and pay taxes.
Right.
I mean, at that point, just get a job. I mean,
right.
It's, it's not enough to live in New York City.
That's for sure. I
was taking that money though. My family owned a house in Queens, right? So they bought a house in Queens for 40 grand in the 70s. It's worth $1 million today.
Wow.
So the thing is that if I didn't have that though, things would be different.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty open, and I tell people like, no, it's because my family was there for me, and I have that support, and it allowed me to stay in my lane, do the underground stuff, not have to chase ridiculous stuff. Some of my friends, they were DJing parties that they hate.
Right.
They hate the club. They hate the people that are there. They hate the music they get requested. The promoter's an asshole.
Yeah.
They're getting way less money than they should, and they're miserable. And I'm like, I'm going to do a song with Afro, and then tomorrow I'm going to go on and I'm going to add to my Microsoft.
Wonderful. Well, listen, congratulations on the moves, the money investment. It's great advice. It's a great move, and it's great inspiration. I love it. You know what I mean?
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolute salute to you. So let's talk about the music now. Talk to me about your current album, the current albums you're putting out, and your new projects. Talk to me about that.
Okay, so I took a little bit of a break for a while, and then just trying to navigate the new era where everything is streaming based. When with everything being streaming based, I mean, there's still some vinyl sales, which is cool, and I'm thankful for, and I make more money off of that than I do off the streaming. But to navigate streaming, it's quantity over quality, which is, for me, I feel like that's part of what's like oversaturating music. There's a gazillion people doing it now, so it's so easy. Right. And they all know they got to put out something every month. Otherwise, those algorithms, they don't like you. The algorithms live off engagement.
Yeah.
So if you're not a huge artist where you have millions of followers, you got to keep putting some stuff out. So before I dropped these new albums with the MCs on it, I went back, I started taking older beats that I had that were just laying around. Some of them, they're not even mixed because they were off cassette, off old CDs. I don't even have the gear that I made it on. And I started piecing together these like concept instrumental albums. So I've just been releasing some of those recently, just to, I call them their sacrifices to the algorithm gods. Just trying to get the algorithm to work in my favor a little bit.
Right.
And, and in the meantime, I've been finally been putting together stuff with new MCs on it. So it'll be a collection of some of the people I've worked with in the past, like a KRS, and Razcast, and Bumpy Knuckles, and Ill Bill. And then it's like newer artists, like an Afro, who I really like what he's done. And there's a variety of people. So I have about 30-something songs in the works. Probably about a third of them are finished. And I'll figure out now how I want to start releasing, how I want to package those together. I used to do 20 album songs. I don't know if I'm going to do that.
Right.
Attention spans are like, it's super short. People listen to 30 seconds of a song. If that, go to the next one.
Yeah.
30 seconds, go to the next one. So I'm trying to figure that part out, but there's no stress and no pressure because I don't make music that kind of fit in any kind of time frame.
Right.
It's not like I'm trying to catch the new buzz off of a style of music. So it doesn't really matter when I drop them. And but I have more stuff coming now, and I'm happy with it. I feel good for a little while. I had like my best friend pass away, my mother pass away. It's like at one point, Rozelle's mom passed away, and we were kind of miserable.
Yeah, condolences.
You're touring constantly,
right?
And then it makes you start thinking about like I miss time with people, and it's like I love touring, I made money, but I love being on stage. That's 2 hours. The other 22 hours of the day, it's like I'm in a van staring at a wall, or just sitting around.
Right.
So a little depressed, and a little bit of trying to figure out. What I really want to do. And so I took a break for a while. It wasn't fun. Gotcha. Going from the record era when record sales started tanking and people weren't really buying hip hop vinyl. They were still buying breaks and and then everything kind of switched to like the 45 trend. So everybody was buying up 45s, and I'm like, okay, now I got to figure out and try to change with the times. And it was a bit much. My son was born, so I'm like, okay, I'm staying home. My wife is a school teacher. She's got a fantastic job. She's been there for a while. That's our health benefits. So I'm like, I need to be home and take care of my son.
Right.
Do some Mr. Mom stuff, and just be there for him. So it was tough to try to create in that few year span. But now I'm comfortable. Everything's been going good. I'm happy. Being away from making a couple of records kind of makes you love it again. Yes. And in that span, I was heavily doing more and more graph. That was like my creative outlet, because I constantly need to be creating something.
Right.
I just have this urge all the time to I have a million ideas and want to make something. And the graffiti kind of kept me sane. It was something I didn't have to tour. I can go do graph and still stay in the tri-state area.
Right, right. So that's
where I'm at.
Cool. So what's the name of the new albums, and when do they come out?
Okay, so over the past few months, I put out a few instrumental albums and scratch albums. One was called Subcultures, and also I was finally started doing my own artwork for the covers, which is kind of cool.
Yes, I've noticed that. Go ahead.
So I put out one called Subcultures. It's more of like it's an ode to New York City. All the titles have to do with New York-based stuff, and it's some up-tempo stuff, some stuff that sounds like break beats that I made, and a few scratch tracks on that. Then I put out one. It's called Inamorata, which is like my love, and it's also called Love Letters. So it's like kind of playing off of my love of letters for graffiti. And I named the tracks like A Love, B Love, C Love.
Nice.
All the letters of the alphabet.
Oh, that's dope. Okay.
That's more of like a mellow summertime kind of vibe. I went through and picked beats out that are, mellow summer vibe. And then I just released one called The Gatekeeper, and that's an ode to Queens. All the titles have to do with different things from Queens. That's a little bit darker and harder, the beats on that one.
Okay.
I have an album called All in Your Mind coming. That's got it's a collaboration with a friend that I grew up with, and we got songs with like OC and Craig G and a couple different other features, Guilty Simpson and some people, and that one's coming out at the end of the month.
Okay.
And then I'm going to start leaking some of the newer songs that I make. Like I said, I have one with Afro that I'm gonna release over the next few months at some point, and then slowly release maybe the one with Ill Bill, and start to drop that leading towards the next ground original album, which are the ones that everybody really likes when I put 30, 40 different MCs on the album. So that one's it's still in the works. I got a lot of the stuff done, but probably sometime early in the next year, 2022.
Okay.
I'll release that. I don't have a title. I have a few that I'm bouncing around. Of course, it's going to be something in the line of my stupid titles from like the No Sellout, No One Cares. It is what it isn't.
Right. Right.
So it's going to be something more like that. I have, to be honest, the idea that I really want to use, I think Ed Sheeran used it for a song, which is driving me out of my mind. Because I still want to use the title.
Okay.
Not that anybody's going to get us confused. It's just more so when they type it in on the internet, they're only going to see that dude.
Right. Right.
The title, I could tell you, the title that I wanted to use is just simply the word don't.
Gotcha.
And, I have a few stupid reasons of why I wanted to call it that, but we'll see. I might call it Never Again, which is also a joke off of that I should be sponsored by Excedrin Migraine for dealing with rappers all the time.
Right. No doubt about it. So all of these projects, they're available on all the streaming platforms, right? Apple Music,
yes.
All the places where everybody consumes and gets music now, right? Okay.
Yes.
Is there going to be any short-run vinyl or any niche, merch product associated with these projects?
There will be. So I'm figuring out the best way. I'm not going to do, like, when I drop a project with 15 songs on it, I'm not going to do, like, a double vinyl album.
Yeah.
So it'll probably be some kind of either, like, maybe a 45 of one of the better songs on there as a single.
Sure.
Or maybe a 12-inch style record with maybe 3 songs on each side. So I'll take the 6 of my favorite ones, something like that, and I'll package it. Possibly, I'll probably going to start doing my first clothing stuff like T-shirts. Everybody's always asking me for a T-shirt or a sweatshirt with my graffiti on it.
Right, absolutely.
And you know, it's my fault for slacking on that and never doing it. But that was never my. I mean, I knew how to sell records, and I knew who to go to do that. So like the T-shirt game was something that was, you know, I should have jumped in, but I'm going to start. So I'll probably when I release an album, I'll probably have a T-shirt that I'll do. I have all these graffiti stickers everybody drives me crazy over, so I've now compiled a mass of them with some graffiti pins and all these different kind of collected things that I'll start packaging and selling those, but it'll be very exclusive. I'm not going to do a lot.
What about a dual graffiti book with all of your best pieces with with music attached to it?
I love the idea, and I plan on doing it. My biggest problem over the years is that I'm never out of keep doing more.
Right. Of course.
It's a weird. It's like it's a gift and a curse. You know, it's like I love that I've done 1,000 graffiti pieces. I have more than that. You know, and I've just in the past 5 years I've done 500 or 600 freight trains and pieces, not like just bombing, like pieces on freight trains, and I just keep going and going and going, and it's like I never know when to just stop and package that and call it a day.
Well,
you know, so I'm still in my creative, and I feel like while I'm still in it and I feel like doing it, I'm just gonna keep going, and then at some point I'll slow down.
Right.
And then I'll focus on the book. I have an idea for like 3 different books that I would like to do, you know, and it's just like I said, it's trying to slow down at some point and stop with the creating the physical stuff and just work on the book, and even some kind of documentary. You know, I have tons of footage, tons of things that people that I could talk to that would be willing to go on film and talk about different things.
Right.
But it's time consuming, and like I said, while I have the urge to want to work with some more rappers and do some more music, and while I still have that urge to jump up at 3 o'clock in the morning and get filthy in a freight train yard, well, like, I'm gonna keep doing that.
Absolutely. Well, I was gonna ask you. I was gonna say that. I mean, that's just amazing that you still are going out there bombing. You know what I mean? In 2021, that's incredible. So again, salute to you. Whenever you can find somewhere legally or non-legally, whatever, it's hip hop, right?
Yeah, of course.
So you know, listen, we should talk a little bit more offline about the graffiti book, music, marriage, because I would like to help you with that project. You know what I mean? Cool. Yep. So let's talk about that offline. So,
sure.
A few more questions. So, what do you think? This is a dual question. What do you think is the future for hip hop? You know, as a DJ or even, you know, as a turntablist? And then what do you think is the future for graffiti and street art?
Sure. Okay. So, well, as far as DJing and the music itself, you know, it's hard to tell where things are totally going to go. But I'm not the guy that thinks everything. Like, I know some people are like, oh, it goes in errors and it comes back and it goes around. I don't really feel like that. I don't really feel like anything's kind of come back. Somewhat when you look at the use of like the 808s in hip hop. You know, it's a throwback to the drum machine era,
right?
In the early to mid '80s, somewhat. But it's hard to tell where things are totally going to go. I do see that over the years, there's been a huge blending of blending of genres. So it's like a lot of the style of pop music is meshing in with a lot of the commercial hip hop. So it's weird. It's hard to judge. You know, like as far as the underground stuff and the indie scene, I mean, it's all going to relatively stay the same for a while. You know, people still dig for samples. They still chop their samples. They still want to put the harder drums in it.
Right.
And like the DJs will still add the scratches. There's still a million people doing that kind of stuff, and it'll forever be around. I just can't see that style going too far because of sample clearance and algorithms. it kind of changes to where it's at. That's why we have the sites like a TrackLib where people are, or these sample packs where people are trying to create their own samples for other people to sample from.
Right.
You know, and then now what's been happening that I don't think the public is aware of it, but they have like these hit maker kind of meetings, hit kind of camp things where they'll get a bunch of songwriters together, like people that write the big hit records.
Right.
And what's happening is that most of the music catalogs from these big huge hit records from the past, they're basically owned by only like one or two different companies.
Right.
And what they're doing is they're gathering these hit makers up and they're encouraging them to do interpolations of older songs. So what that is for people that don't know is I don't know who did, I don't know if it's Doja Cat or SZA, one of these did they redid like Olivia Newton-John, let's get physical,
right.
But it's the principle, and they change it around, but they're using the same melody.
Yep.
So those artists, the people that own the rights, they still get paid off of that stuff.
Right.
So what they're doing is they're gathering these big hit makers together, and they're encouraging them to do that and to make hit records using melodies from older songs. That's why you hear it on every song. If you know music, you can go through all the hit records and be like, oh, well, that's just this song, but they just changed the words around a little bit. It's the same melody.
Absolutely.
And what they're doing is they know if that melody already sold millions of copies, they know it works. They know it's familiar to a lot of people. They know that the younger crowd will gravitate towards it. They know that the younger crowd or the older crowd are going to go back and find the old original songs and play those as well. And it's a win-win-win for those guys because they're just making money like crazy. That's how they're figuring out to maximize profits off of the streaming era. And so it's really weird the way music gets made today. You know, if you look at, you go through like somebody like Drake's album, right? And you read the credits. It's wild to me. Like, I remember going and, I'd look at the credits of albums and I'd be like, okay, Large Professor produced this and this guy rapped on it. And maybe this guy, too, that they sampled from, his name's in it, but that's it.
Right. Now
there's like 15 people listed. Yeah. And the song will have like 2 drums and a keyboard melody. And you're like, well, what happened? Who was the 15 people?
Right. What did they do?
And then what's crazy is that if you look into it, it'll be like, well, we had this guy, he made the sound for that they used, and then this guy played the melody with that sound. Then this guy did the drums. They don't even know each other. Like these people never even met each other. Wow. Like this guy did the drums. These 3 people wrote the song. This guy helped write the verse. This person came up with the hook and the melody. And it's weird to me. I mean, that's why a lot of it is kind of, it's cookie cutter stuff. It's all,
Right.
We had like, okay, so when Cypress Hill made an album, it's like, well, this came from the mind of Muggs and Be Real and Sendog. They made that.
Right.
And then, so like what you're getting from them, it sounds different because they made what they wanted to make. It didn't sound like a Das EFX album. It didn't sound like a Gangstar album.
Right.
And like, Pete Rock and CL Smooth, they had their vibe. Dre was on his thing. Like, everybody had their own thing. And it was, so now, like I said, where it's going, like not in more in the commercial world, not in the underground, even though underground stuff sounds the same. It's still, it's like, it's been like like copy stuff and then you get successful kind of world, which is weird to me. We grew up in the no biting allowed era.
Absolutely.
And it's a little bit more now where it's like, oh, this guy sounds just like Ghostface. It's great. And it's like, well, that's weird. Like that's, and the way I look at it, I'm like, no, you don't want to sound like the other guy. But
wow,
it's definitely now these weird collaborative, huge hit records where there's strategic strategies behind it. Like I said, getting them to use stuff from these catalogs and reuse this melody from this popular Billy Joel song. It's going to do great.
Right. And it usually does, right?
Yeah, of course. It's like, oh, see this Marvin Gaye song?
Right.
Like if we did this, but we had this new producer do it his way, and you re-sang the melody, and it's like, yeah, well, of course it's going to do good. It's Marvin Gaye.
Right. Once a hit, always a hit, right?
Yeah. I mean, it was, who figured that out? Diddy. Diddy was like, oh, okay, so this song that sold 8 million copies, you mean I could just take this and we could redo our stuff over and I could sell 2 million and look like a genius? Well, let's do it.
Let's do it, right.
And that's kind of where a lot of the stuff is. It's a little weird to me. A lot of stuff it's hard, like as I get older, it's hard to listen to a 21-year-old tell me about stuff. And like I don't want to sound like the old guy, but it's like, all right, so you made a song about weed and girls, and it's like, dude, it's like I got decades on you. I know about weed and girls.
Right.
And I've heard my favorite artists do that better than you just did it anyway. So it gets a little weird. I mean, I could see the styles change and what gets the kids amped in the club and that kind of stuff, and it's cool. Like I'm not against it. Like it's every era is like that. I love 60s and 70s rock. Right? I love that. The new rock don't sound anything like that stuff.
It doesn't.
And it's like not my thing, but it's like it's cool. I get it. I get why they do what they do, but so I don't try to fight against it. I stay in my lane. I do what I like, but it's weird. The process is very weird to me now, though. Definitely. Got you.
Okay, so graffiti and street art. What do you believe is the future for that?
So the street art, first, this is how I like to define the difference between graffiti and street art.
Yes.
So graffiti, well, street art is art in the street, and graffiti is art from the street.
Yes, sir.
And now graffiti, and which we tried to bring up in our trial too, and part of why we tried to defend it, if you look at art in general, most of the artwork that you would see in a museum comes from European and Asian oil painting techniques. It's nothing that anybody in the United States invented. Of course, you have Jackson Pollock and some artists here, but it's all of the techniques and stuff that people are doing is from other places.
Right.
For us, graffiti came from the tri-state area. I mean, some people want to argue Philly, New York, and that's fine. New York and Philly, will put them together, but it came from here. And it was invented here. Now it's huge. It's global, all over the place. There's something like a 5 Pointz or an art district in damn near every city everywhere you go now.
Right.
Where they let artists legally paint, and they do these big mural fests and block parties, and it's all over the place. I mean, everywhere. So that came from here, and it's still in its infant stages. If you look at graffiti, and some people want to say it started in the 60s, started in the 70s, whatever, it's still 50, 60 years old. It's new. When you go to a museum and you see these oil paintings that are 500 years old,
right.
We're still new. It's cryptocurrency. It's still new.
Right.
You don't know. Like, so that's where we were also arguing, like, some of those pieces that guy destroyed from some of these famous artists, like, you don't know if that could go in a museum in 300 years from now. People are looking at the Tats Crew like it's a Rembrandt.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's still infant stages, and it's growing, and it's getting around. Now, street art is, a lot of that is the absence of the graffiti lettering, right? So it'll be a really good mural of like a portrait of someone, or a drawing of an animal, or some kind of abstract design. And like, a lot of the stuff is really cool. There's a lot of people that do great work. I always try to remind everybody, like, that's fantastic, and it should be celebrated, and it's cool, but don't do it at the expense of the good graffiti stuff. Like, because I'll notice that, like, even when we're out painting and I'm doing a wild style and my friend's painting a character next to me, everybody walks by and compliments about how great his character is, and they just stand and look at my thing, and they're like, don't even know what it is. And they just kind of keep it moving.
Mm.
And I love trying to remind everybody, like, listen, I know painting the portrait is really cool, looks fantastic, and they're super talented. But the guy doing the wild style, like, those portrait artists and street art guys, they'll never be able to do that. It's the different. It's like watching a guy, and no knock on like a DJ that just stands there and plays whatever the popular songs are for the people in the club, and everybody loves it. But he can't go, like, he ain't gonna do what Rob Swift does. You know, like he's not going to go do what Jeff and Cash Money do.
Right.
And I'm trying to tell everybody, like, I know it's easier on the eyes. Sometimes you won't understand it. You can't read the thing that I did because it's technically not for other people. It's a graph community. It's for writers. Mm-hmm. They understand, like, oh, it's so sick. He connected his E all the way through to R and the M, and look at how he did it. I've never seen anybody do a connection like that. Like, the average person doesn't give a shit about that.
Right.
But I just trying to remind them, though, like, this is our art form, and it's all over the world, and it's making money. It's in museums. It's a huge thing. So, like, we still got to claim that and make sure that people don't forget where it came from. And it's, the lettering is still very important. You know, I've watched legal walls. Like, it's a fight to get wall space, right? Because everybody wants to be able to do their mural in public so everyone can post it on social media.
Right.
But I'll watch where we'll go in a place and ask, and they don't want the wild style piece on the side of the building, you know, and I get it. But, you know, and then like somebody new will come and say they're going to paint Garfield and some flowers, and they get the wall. And it starts to be, you know, it starts to grow and grow. And surely, you know, slowly over time, you'll see the graffiti guys start to get less and less work. And then it's like, when I talk to some of the guys that I look up to that did some of the best pieces, they'll be frustrated that they make all their money simply like splashing paint on things. Like,
wow.
They'll take a lamp and splash some paint on it, and somebody will be like, oh, abstract art, it's amazing, I want to buy that. But the actual graffiti thing that they grew up doing, that they made them famous, the people don't want any of that, or they don't want to pay money for that.
Wow, got you.
And so I try to fight for that. You know, I come across as like this old purist guy sometimes, and people don't understand it. But there's a reason behind why I'm trying to talk about that stuff and keep that stuff going. I'm not fighting with a street artist person. Like, I'm not against it. It's great. Like, it's cool. Just like I'm not fighting with, like, I know I have a friend who produced stuff on Drake's album, and I don't listen to that stuff. That's not my thing. But I love that he did what he did, and it sounds good for them, and it's cool. Like, I'm not against the stuff. It's just, don't forget the other stuff, you know? Don't forget why this is even here.
Right.
You know, don't talk about this guy if you're not going to remember KRS and Big Daddy Kane. Remember, like, why this is happening, you know?
Absolutely.
And that's all. Like, you know, I try not to come across as this mean mad guy. You know, I'm not. But you know, people look at it as like, oh, he's dissing this, or he's not. You know, and I'm like, no, just, we got to fight for where it came from. So in the future, I do see the street art thing growing. It's been growing. There's guys now that are doing the sides of cruise ships.
Wow.
You know, like this one guy from Europe, he just got this gig where he's painting the side of a cruise ship. It's gigantic, and it's incredible. I can only imagine the money. There's places like in Greensboro, North Carolina, where this guy is bringing in all these street artists from around the world, and they're doing an insane collection, and it's Greensboro, North Carolina.
Yeah.
You know, like they have that, and they have it everywhere now. And, you know, it's cool as long as somebody remembers the guys of why you're there, and it's the graph guys. Wow. And let them come and share in the success and share in the spotlight.
Wow.
You know, and teach people. You know, I find that when people stop on the street, if there's anybody willing to talk to me, or they ask me, like, what are you doing? What does it say? Why did you do that? And I just get 2 minutes with them, they'll appreciate it. It changes everything immediately.
Wow. So, you know, this is the reason why I asked you, because I know the difference between graffiti and street art, but I wanted to ask you, you know, what your opinion was on the future, because it sounds like graffiti and street art have the same, you know, tug of war situation that, you know, current rap music and popular music has with the legends and the classic hip hop sound, right? It's like,
no, it's totally true.
Yeah, it's like, this is all dope. It's cool. It's the future. It's the current sound. But don't forget where you came from, and don't forget the foundation, right?
Yes, right. Let some of those people bask in the success of what's going on. You know, it's like it's where like I see some of these big name artists, and it's like you could go grab, like they'll always talk about, oh, my favorite rapper of all time is is Cool G Rap and KRS, and I love Master Ace is the best. And then they do an album, and they'll have like 19 features on the album, and it's like, why did you put all of the, why didn't you just put Master Ace on your album then? If you love the guy, he's good, he's still around, he's alive, he's doing well. Like, why do you only put these people on the record? And that's more of where the complaints come in. It's like, yo, you could, the same thing with scratching. It's like everybody, it's like they want to put out hip hop album, and I'm like, you can't have one scratch on your album.
Right.
Like, because it'll show the younger kids that that's cool, it's acceptable, they'll like it. And there's no excuse now with the sample clearance stuff because of Serato, you could, if me and you were making a song and you were like, oh man, we can't clear that scratch from Rakim, we could just say the line over and I could scratch it with Serato.
That's correct. Absolutely.
So there's no excuse for some of these big name artists, and I'm not going to say names or something, but like even DJ Premier has had his scratches removed from a huge artist record that, and it's like, why? Like, you could clear it clearly. I mean, you make billions of dollars. Like,
right,
you could clear this, and it's Premier.
Right,
know, and it's like, why would you take that off the record? And that's the stuff where I just try to, I give my speeches. Nobody gives a shit, but I try to, I'm just trying to, like, that's what the kids want. Like, when we tour around, one of the blessings is that because myself and Rozelle aren't doing, we're not rapping about guns and drugs and all that kind of stuff. So we did a lot of all age shows, and did plenty of times where there was 5-year-olds at the show, and we've done tons of daytime shows, and there'd be 1 million kids there. And they've never seen anybody scratch a record or beatbox.
Right. I mean,
as soon as they see it, they love it.
These kids,
they love it.
Kids don't know it's old until somebody tells them it's old. Everything is new and fresh, and you can go play Fortnite right now and hear old records that came out 50 years ago, still today. And you can't tell me that you can't put scratching on a Ed Sheeran record or a Rihanna record. You could, and people would still love it, no doubt.
Of course. It was the same thing that I fought for years. I can't tell you how many promoters I've had tell me before I gone on a gig, like, look, I know what you're known to do. I know what I know you love scratching and cutting up the records. Like, yo, this crowd's not going to like it this is fake. They don't like that here. This is, we're doing a festival, and they're like, oh, what a headliner is Aphex Twin. That crowd's not really going to be into. You shouldn't play this kind of stuff. Don't do the old school stuff. Don't do and I've even had promoters try to tell me what to wear, which is wild. And they've sent me pictures of, I won't even say no, they've sent me pictures of other DJs and asked me if I swear to God, and asked me if I dress like that. And I was like, I'm good. Like, don't worry. Everything's going to be all right,
Wow.
And I used to make it a point, too, like, and I learned this from Scribble. When we would do clubs back in the day, they'd have the booth, and we would be like, now we're bringing our own set. And they would be like, no, like, we have a booth. And we'd be like, no. We're setting up where they can see us. We don't care. We'll bring our own stuff. We're bringing our own set. And we used to carry around our own stuff. Yeah. When I first went on tour, too, I would do the same thing. We'd show up somewhere. If they didn't have, if they had some kind of booth thing or wanted me on the side, I was like, Rod, no way. We're bringing that right out in the front. And he was like, yeah, hell yeah. We want them to see what you're doing.
Absolutely.
And we would make a point to do that. And it changes people. Like I know it sounds weird because, by the year 1999, you would think that most people had seen a DJ, scratch behind his back or under his leg or do that. But you'd be surprised when we were touring around, a large part of the crowd never saw that. And they damn sure never saw it in person. Right.
Absolutely.
And
100%.
It would blow my mind. Like, I couldn't believe it. And I would never talk about it in public because I figured people were going to think I was an idiot. So I never wanted to say, like, I've been at shows where people come up to me and be like, I've never seen anything like that. And I'm like, well, I could show you people were doing it for 25 years already.
Right.
But they personally never seen it. They're in a small town somewhere, and we played in Tasmania. Like, we did festivals out in Africa in the middle of nowhere, and the bulk of the people there, they came over to me like, I couldn't believe it. We had people like trying to touch my hands because they never seen anything like that.
Wow. So,
which is also something that's really crazy. The most love that I've ever felt in my life, and the most nervous I ever was going on a stage was when we did this huge festival in Africa. It was gigantic. It was sponsored by the government, and it was mostly traditional African folk music from Senegal. And we had a connection. They booked us to do it. We got there. It was one of those places where the hotel had like the armored vehicle outside and dudes with guns like protecting the hotel.
Yeah.
And they took us, we were in this long ride, and I was like, where are we going? Like, when are they going to rob me? Like, what's going on? And we got there, and, I'm not going to lie. I think there was like myself and one of the guys working sound were like the only white dudes that you could see with a telescope. And I'm American. I'm a New Yorker. I'm wearing a New York jersey, American dude. People aren't always thrilled to see you.
Right.
And I was like, yo, this is like, you sure? I set off the show. So I'm like, so I'm going to go on stage to this whole crowd, and everybody here is going to be cool that the American white dude with the New York jerseys on stage. And they were like, just do what you do. And I was like, all right, I'm a little worried about this one. And not that anybody was going to kill me, but more so like they're just going to be like, fuck this guy.
Right.
Especially at the traditional African folk festival kind of deal. So, and I went up there, I looked over at Rahzel like, yo, I'm just doing what I do. Started cutting up Run DMC and Public Enemy, loud as hell, going sick, doing all my shit. And I've never felt the love and appreciation. Like, they were trying to drag me over the fence to throw me up in the air. Like, how happy they were.
Amazing.
And, yeah, like that, and that's why I'm like, we just got to keep doing it and show people. Like, you just got to show people, like, it's love everywhere. Like, you just got to show them. You got to show the kids. Like, you can't, don't make fun of them just because they're wearing some weird old clothes. I mean, I don't dress like that, but, I mean, we know the deal. I mean, you've seen the Furious 5 and Soul Sonic Force. I mean,
absolutely.
They were trying to dress like Rick James. I mean, I didn't dress like Rick James. I wanted to dress like Run DMC. But
right.
So I'm not mad at the kids. I get it. Like people are weird. They get weird with that. A lot of the tough guy rap stuff, and it's like, no. Like, no, just show that dude. Like, whoever these new guys are, like, they'll like the scratching too. Like, they don't understand it because they grew up not seeing it. Like whoever the big guy is, like the Baby or whatever these guys are, like they, like if I was alone in a room with that guy and started showing him scratching, he would think it's sick.
Right.
You just got to show them. I mean, it's, and then hopefully the next generation is like, oh, okay, then we'll get some newer kids and whatever. They're going to scratch on a controller. That's fine. Whatever. I'm not going to be mad that they don't all have the same turntable I had for 30 years. It's cool, and just try to keep the art form alive though, with a little tradition in it. That's all.
Absolutely. So listen, DJ JS-1, aka Jerms, please, in closing, before we get out of here, tell them again where they can find and what's the name of the current album that you got out now and the new album that's coming out.
All right, so you could find me anywhere under DJ JS and the number 1. That's Spotify, YouTube, Instagram, Apple Music, wherever you can find music or find videos. You can see my graph and you could hear my music. There's tons of albums out. They're under the Ground Original label. The last one I just put out is called The Gatekeeper. I got one coming out called In Your Mind. And I appreciate anybody that just searches for my stuff. It's cool. I love hip hop, and I'm just trying to, progress and carry on tradition.
Absolutely. And one more time, how can our listeners continue to follow you, and what's your website?
So the best way to follow me is Google DJ JS-1, and everything pops up, and you'll see everything.
Wonderful. So listen, man, I want to thank you for allowing me to interview you for Vinyl Esquire. Vinyl Esquire is the DJ podcast that uplifts the DJ culture and honors our legends. And by the way, you're a legendary DJ, turntablist, producer, everything that you've done with the Rocksteady crew, Rozelle, all your albums, and everything you've done for the graffiti world, and that amazing trial that you won. Salute. I want to congratulate you right now. That was a win for hip-hop, and I want you to continue doing what you're doing. I look forward to the new music and the new artwork.
Thank you, my brother. Listen, what you're doing and taking time to uplift other DJs is fantastic. So I love Vinyl Esquire, and we'll try to make sure that everybody gets this.
Absolutely.
I love what you're doing, bro.
Absolutely. So thank you once again. This is Vinyl Esquire. This is the DJ podcast that uplifts the DJ culture and honors our legends. And you have been listening to the legendary DJ JS-1, a.k.a. Jerms.
Peace.
Hello world, I want to welcome you to Vinyl Esquire, the podcast that delivers culture, truth, music.
You talk about some free entertainment. This is some free entertainment that you get here every week. JS-1 back on the ones and twos, ladies and gentlemen. Let's keep it moving.
Word of Doc, on the ultimate word of Doc, on the ultimate